What's going on? The podcast, according to sources, I'm your guy, Sean Davis, SD2 mics. And I'm running usually a three-man weave, but we'll go ahead and just run this 2-on-1. Got my guy, Chris Kaysen. I've got BC is unable to join us right now. If he can hop in a few minutes, he'll do so. We are brought to you by Peyton Sports Network. You can go to PeytonSportsNet.com. And you'll be able to watch all previous episodes of the podcast according to sources. Big day in Chicago basketball as the Western Conference Final and the Eastern Conference Final continue on. But the Bulls make splashes today in the NBA Ocean. Of course, the Bulls started their bubble workouts, and that was the big news, all the players. And then around 5:30 this afternoon, Chicago time, the news came down. Woj was the first one to break it on social media that Billy Donovan, former head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder, is now the head coach for your Chicago Bulls. So C4, I want to get your initial reaction about the move before we start talking about some of the inside things that led to this hire.
Yeah, I think it's a very good hire, especially with where the team is at right now. I mean, one of the youngest rosters in the league. Billy Donovan has shown just like over the course of more so specifically this year as opposed to like the first 4 years, in OKC that he's very good with young players. I mean, Oklahoma City Thunder, I think, had like a 2% chance to make the playoffs this season. Yep. And, they won 44 games and, basically, took a Houston Rockets team to 7 games, in the first round series there. So very good coach, very well respected around the league. I think the players will actually love, playing for him. And that's something that wasn't it was actually apparent just the last 2 years under Boylan. And what I think it does for the Bulls is now you have, a coach in place now who can get there early. The season won't be beginning probably until next January, but now you have, a coach who has all of this time now to begin, putting his system into place. Players will start to identify their roles a little bit earlier. So I think this is great, it's as opposed to, waiting, probably until, November or something. Now you have a coach in place. He can begin, probably trying to get his staff in place there also. And it's perfect timing, with the little mini campus bubble starting this week as well also.
Yeah, both AK and Billy Donovan released statements today. We'll start with AK. We are very pleased to welcome Billy and his family to the Chicago Bulls. The success that he's had sustained over the course of his coaching career puts him on a different level. And then Billy Donovan, I want to thank Jerry, Michael, Arturis, and Mark for the opportunity to coach the Chicago Bulls. I also want to thank them for the time and effort they put into this hiring process. I'm excited to partner with Arturis as we move forward in the organization. I also want to go to something in June 6th of 2020. Arturis Karnisovas met with the media, and this is what he said he was looking for in his thought process going into the coaching search.
Well, coaching in the league is very difficult, and to make a decision about, coaching is really hard. It's probably the hardest thing for executives. So I look in a lot of aspects. Again, I've had numerous conversations. That said, I would like to be in a building, to be in practices, to be around, the coaching staff in meetings. We're looking forward to getting in the video room together, analyze the games, to watch games together. Talking to players and, coaches, obviously everybody's disappointed by, with the results of last year. They definitely underperformed, but watching games, I'm excited to watch because there's a lot of talent on this team. And in order for me to keep players and coaches accountable, I have to have personal relationships with them. And that's what I need to cultivate. That's my objective of this offseason.
So there you have it. Bulls VP of our basketball operations, Arturas Karnasovich, talking about what he was looking for to establishing with the organization, not just the players, but also including what he was looking for in his next head coach. And he's landed on Billy Donovan. Let me tell you what excites me about this, not so much the hire. And I really can't wait. We'll have another podcast because I know BC might have some different thoughts and different feelings about the hiring than we do, Chris. But I'm excited because in the previous podcast, you can go check out that podcast entitled Go Get 'Em, where we talked about the top 3 prospects. And we were saying if Mark Eversley and AK saw somebody that they wanted, it would be refreshing to see somebody in the Bulls front office make a bold move to go get who they wanted. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that they were looking at guys that weren't as experienced as Billy Donovan, but once Billy Donovan became available, it seems like Arturas put on the full court press, identified him as the guy that he wanted, and went and got that guy. We just talked about offline. We could tell the listeners you can go read Adrian Wojnarowski's article on ESPN.com where he talked about AK selling Billy Donovan on this job and using the word and forecasting this organization as, if I'm not mistaken, I want to paraphrase. He said an anchor franchise in the NBA, an anchor franchise in the NBA. So when you think about what he did, he went out, he got his guy, and then sold him on the product because there are better rosters out there that Billy Donovan could have become the head coach of, but somehow he decided to come to Chicago.
Yeah, I just think, when I hear anchor franchises, I just look at, franchises like New York, the Lakers, Chicago, those big market franchises. And when you look at the Bulls are, a global brand. More so than probably any other like organization, in the league. And that's mostly due to, Michael Jordan and then the titles in the 90s. But, as soon as he became available, as soon as it was announced that Donovan and the Thunder would parting ways, I immediately tweeted that, like, this is probably like the candidate the Bulls want, So, than Kenny Atkinson, more so than Ime Udoka, because now you have a coach who's not only has experience coaching, but, playoff, level coaching. He has experience with dealing with big personalities, Russell Westbrook. He has experience dealing with, a guy like Chris Paul, who's probably one of the smartest players in the league. He has experience dealing with young talent and, is always very poised, always very, composed and like I said, well-respected around the league. So when a guy like that becomes available, like you got to go get him, man. I think the Bulls, just the last 2 years they have underperformed just based on the talent that's on this roster. A lot of it had to do with injuries. And then a lot of it, was also they just didn't like, I don't think anyone liked playing for Boylan. They didn't buy into anything he was saying. He lost that team basically as soon as he took over. So, having Donovan in here now, I think is going to be very refreshing for the players. You're going to see, some very positive PR stuff start to come out very shortly. We already seen Billy Donovan get like huge show of support from, Bradley Beal,
Joakim Noah.
Yeah. I mean, just a very, very good coach, very well respected, and, the Bulls' best coach, since, Tom Thibodeau.
So all of our listeners out there, if you're watching us right now, feel free to send your questions. We'll try to answer them as best as we can, try to give you some insight. We're going to touch on some things. We know that we talked about this in previous podcasts, how important it was that they refresh the organization for someone like Lauri Markkanen. I mean, he is, in my opinion, one of the keys to whether or not this roster as it currently sits is able to make it into the playoffs next season and then continue to grow and develop. That's one of the things that I think Billy Donovan is going to come in. He's going to watch during this mini bubble and he's going to say, man, who are the three guys that I can say can be the anchor for this team? And then we'll make moves because they do have financial flexibility moving forward over the next 2 to 3 years to be able to go ahead and be a big player in free agency. You hear the names, Anthony Davis. It might be a Hail Mary to think about Giannis until Antetokounmpo coming here, but they're going to have that opportunity to do so. Now we have my guy Kevin Vassar said he likes to move. I know there are a lot of people that are Chicago fans that aren't necessarily residents of Chicago anymore, but they're around the country, and they were chiming in. And a lot of people were saying, "Meh," because of, I guess, his lack of being a coach that can get you to A to C. He's a good A to B coach. Now, I will say this. One of the things I also like is that he was a longtime coach for the Team USA program for the 17 and under team. And I believe his last team was the 2014 team where he had Harry Giles and Jason Tatum in that squad. So pretty much the young stars that exist in the league today, they went through that Team USA funnel, and Billy Donovan was able to touch them, build a relationship with them. So that might bode well in free agency, or somehow might bode well via the draft or connections or agents. We know the NBA, and we talked about it, how deals happen, and the Bulls, hopefully with AK and Mark Eversley and their connections, are going to get into that web of NBA moves and causing things to happen down the line and building those relationships. So we talked about the hire. We talked about AK, and he allowed the people to hear what AK was looking for in the coaching search. Why did Billy Donovan choose the Bulls? As we said before, he could have gone to Philly. He could have gone to Houston. OKC is a job he could have stayed. They said it was a mutual decision between him and OKC that they would part ways. But there were better jobs out there if you just look at the roster or you look at them having a star player. Why would Billy Donovan choose the Chicago Bulls?
Well, I think even if you look at that Philadelphia job, you're coming in there with already, a roster that, needs some retooling.
Yeah.
Very high, salary cap. They really don't have too much flexibility to do anything. You have two stars there in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, but there's like some differences between how I think they believe how the team should operate as far as how the team plays. So I don't think any like a coach like Billy Donovan, you don't want to go into that atmosphere because first of all, there's pressure there already because it's still a good team.
So are you saying there won't be pressure here in Chicago?
I mean, there's pressure, but you're coming in, basically looking to mold and develop. As opposed, you go to Philadelphia, the expectation is now like, hey, we'll put out, the first round. Like, can you get us at least to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah.
Like, can you find a way to make a lineup of Joel Embiid, Al Horford, and Ben Simmons work? I mean, because you can't trade Al Horford at all. So it's a roster that, is going to need some type of very imaginative stuff going forward. So I think that situation will probably – I see D'Antoni being the guy to go there. I have no idea what type of system he would employ there, who handles the ball, who creates there. But I think he'd probably be one of the top candidates to go there. But with this situation, I just think, you're in a big market, so you're under a new front office regime. So there's excitement here now. And I believe he's looking at things in the next 3 years. You already have like, burgeoning star and Zach LaVine. You have Lauri Markkanen, who, I think Billy can do some great things with him. First of all, just getting him involved in the offense,
right?
To begin with, making him a central part of the offense. I mean, and then you got a guy who can push the ball up and down the floor in Kobe White. So you also got a underutilized big in Wendell.
If he can stay healthy.
Well, yeah, that, and I think,
stay healthy.
The fact that basically all his opportunities came, just going to get the ball off the offensive glass, either dunking it back or, putting the ball back in. They can run offense through him. He's actually a very good passer. They just haven't utilized him in that way. So there's talent on this team is kind of like not proven yet as a cohesive unit just because of the injuries. But I just think if you're Billy Donovan, you looked at the opportunity, you looked at what opportunities will be available going forward. You look at the market, you look at the resources that are behind things, and I think it's a no-brainer. You take this job.
It's amazing because I think the clock starts ticking for me on AK with this draft and next year's free agency. I think I'm going to give him this draft, next year's free agency, and then the draft after that to say, okay, now let's see how he meshes and what moves he makes with the current roster so I can have some type of clear direction where we're headed. As I said before, starting next year, the books are going to be clear. They're going to be able to at least sign one big-time free agent and maybe one middle-of-the-road free agent to improve this roster. I think after 1 year, because I took some calls today on ESPN 1000, and people are actually talking about 6th and 7th seed next year, just based on this move. And I'm like, man, I don't know, especially when you include KD and Kyrie coming back to Brooklyn. Some other teams, if John Wall comes back to Washington, they already have Bradley Beal. It's like we just don't know how things are going to shake out. The biggest thing for me is just being able to watch the Bulls consistently, having a consistent core on the court and seeing what they can do. That right there within itself will be a victory.
Yeah.
One of the amazing things I want to point out, I looked it up. Offensive efficiency, even with Chris Paul, OKC was only like 15th in the league. Offensive efficiency. And then like at pace of play, they were like 18th in the league. Interesting, because I know you spoke, had a chance to speak to some of the players, and they talked about, before they went to the bubble, they talked about some of the things that they would like to see, especially offensively. Go ahead and like let the people know some of the things they talked about they would like to see before they knew who their new head coach would be.
Yeah, well, it's just, easier opportunities for baskets, getting the ball, pushing it up down the court. You have athletes. You have Lauri Markkanen, who can grab the ball and push it up the floor. You have Wendell Carter, who's not a slow big at all. You have, Kobe White, can grab the ball and push it in transition. You have a freak athlete in Zach LaVine. So obviously looking to get up and down the floor more, but that also comes with, stops on the defensive end. And that's something the Bulls are going to have to work very diligently on this offseason and improving, especially, stopping, easy baskets, stopping the corner three, which they gave up a lot of last year. So I think Billy will help that. I mean, when you look at pace with OKC and you look at having Chris Paul there, Chris Paul is not trying to push the ball up and down the floor
at all
anymore at 35. I mean, what Chris Paul did do was, I think, lead the NBA in like clutch scoring. So basically that you're predicated around a system of letting him do what he does best. But this situation is going to be, very different, because I think this will be like the year they hand Kobe White the reins and be like, hey, you're working on your playmaking, you're working on like all this stuff. Basically the keys are yours now. So that's going to be interesting to see, because to me, Kobe's strength, at least, all throughout high school and college was his scoring. And now, at 6'5", now you're trying to basically learn when to slow things down. You're trying to learn how to read pick and roll defenses, the different coverages. And now you're trying to get easier shots for people. So that's going to be an adjustment. But, I think Donovan will come in here and he'll implement some things that'll get Zach easier looks, as opposed to Zach needing to ISO all the time. You'll get, situations where Lauri is catching the ball more so on the move now than just settling for, threes all the time. So I'm kind of excited about the move.
I wouldn't venture to say that Billy Donovan has had point guards that are ISO dominant in Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
When he gets this roster, I think you'll start to see some more of the things that he implemented when he was at the University of Florida, when he had two bigs that pretty much they ran the offense through, and Joakim Noah and Al Horford. and they had shooters on the perimeter, and they had wing defenders, and they pressured the ball and turned you over. Like, that is the system that he taught at Florida. That is the system he taught the Team USA. And I think once he got to OKC, he adapted to what he was given. I thought they played very well. I know a lot of people will talk about Russell Westbrook and that MVP season and just letting him do whatever he wanted to do. And then Chris Paul coming in, and like you said, he's not trying to push the ball. You know, he wants to dominate the ball. But in the same breath, I think when he gets a kid like Kobe, he's able to shape and mold him the way that he would like to shape and mold him in an offense that could bode well for the Bulls and definitely can bode well for Kobe White and his development. So do you think they missed the boat? Is there anybody else out there that you would have liked to see as the Bulls head coach other than Billy Donovan? Is there somebody that you had pegged and said, this is that guy, I think they should go get him? And you're saying to yourself, yeah, Billy Donovan is nice, but I wish we could have gotten this guy.
I mean, when you look at the candidates that are out there, you know, most of them, and you look at, you know, who was rumored to be like actually, you know, on their radar, a lot of it was, you know, this would have been their first head coaching job. So, I mean, I don't know how you sell it to fans at all, but, you know, I think the top guys would have been like an Adrian Griffin, Wes Unseld Jr. You would have had a Kenny Atkinson, but, you know, this gives you a guy who already has, you know, head coaching experience, has a very good record. I think like a 60% winning percentage, has playoff experience, has experience coaching, you know, big personalities, which I believe will bode well for just future when you're talking about, you know, getting like big name free agents here. And, you know, also like in terms of helping develop like younger players, when you look over there at OKC, like the Terrence Fergusons, the Hamidou Diallo's, you know, the Darius Bazleys, like those guys are playing, you know, even Lou Dort. You look at, you look at, you know, those guys during the season, and they're actually playing, you know, even going to Shea, those guys are playing pivotal roles like in the playoffs. You know, Chris Paul, I think, is, you know, a large part for, you know, some of that, but a lot of that is coaches and putting them in positions to succeed. So, you know, if you're a Bulls fan, I think you always take things with a grain of salt just because of what's been going on, you know, the last 2 decades. But, you know, I think we like all need to give this regime like at least some type of like leeway, you know, for now, at least give things a chance, as opposed to, you know, always being pessimistic like we're used to, because we're used to like that not getting our way, not getting you know, that player, not getting, you know, whatever it is. But I think, you know, let's give this some time. We have a long time before next season starts. So let this guy get in here, implement his system, and, you know, let's see how things, you know, look the first couple of months.
Man, what I'm excited about is no matter how you feel, you can be a Bulls fan that's pessimistic. You can be optimistic over the top, or you can just say, hey, I'm just going to let this play out and see where it goes. Either way, you have a guy at the helm of this organization that knows how to sell your team.
Yeah.
That's what you can take from this move. Arturas Karnisovas knows how to sell this team to coaches, and hopefully we'll see that when it comes time for free agency and players. But you can feel good about the guy that's at the helm. He knows who he wants this and how he wants this organization to be viewed around the league, and he's a darn good salesman when it comes to doing that. That's what you've just seen in the hiring of Billy Donovan as your Bulls head coach. As always, the podcast according to sources. I am SD2 Mike Sean Davis, my guy Chris Kaysen. We usually run the 3-man weave with my guy Brian Crawford. He was unavailable this evening, so we just decided to come on and give you guys a little bit about the hiring of Billy Donovan. We're going to give you another podcast probably in the next 48 hours to follow up this one. Once we hopefully will hear from Billy Donovan in the next 48 hours, the Bulls will let us know when he'll be available.
Yeah.
Shout out to Zach LaVine too, who had like the video of the day. I don't know if you saw this. He was on Facebook gaming when he found out that Billy Donovan was the head coach, and his reaction was priceless. It was almost a relief, right?
Yeah.
Because as a player, you don't know who the next head coach is going to be. And when he heard, he's like, yeah, he's a good head coach.
Yeah.
Like, finally, I got somebody in here that's competent that I can rock with.
Doesn't have to worry about, timeouts, with 5 seconds left and they're down 13 anymore. So.
Down 13, right. So before I let people go, C4, I want you to let people know what you've been writing on. You're a great writer. See, they can find your stuff in Forbes. They can find your stuff in GQ. I know you have a Kobe White story up. Yeah. What else do you have in the mix?
Basically just doing something, probably be up, who knows, in the next couple of days, talking about the, our opportunity initiative that's coming here in Chicago is basically, it was basically co-partnered with Nipsey Hussle, real estate developer David Gross. This will be like the first initiative here in Chicago. They're going to be basically uplifting like I think a 134 unit property in on the south side of Chicago, but it's in partnership with the NBPA. I think Lou Alding and Robert Covington, are the faces behind that. So very exciting initiative coming here in Chicago. One of, I think, 2 phases of their initiative. But yeah, that's the next thing that I'm working on right now.
That's what's up. I want to say shout out to everyone that watched and chimed in. Kataka, I see you. KV, Kevin Vassar, I see you. DG, my guy. Mikal Harris, LeVar Faulkner, my girl TT, Tanisha Manuel. We appreciate you guys chiming in, saying that you love. Someone asked a question. What do you think the free agency pitch will be?
That's a great question. I think that has to come with what this team does year one under Donovan. The talent, I think the talent is there. The Bulls don't really get credit just because they kind of underperformed the last 2 years. Like I said, a lot of that is injury, just because you haven't had your actual core on the floor together, so hopefully, injuries, knock on wood, hopefully this team does get a full season or at least, 70 plus games together so you can see how they complement, one another. I don't even think Zach and, Laurie, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm not certain that they've played, 60 games together,
right.
But, the pitch I think will be, basically just similar to what Billy Donovan was pitched. This is this is one of the anchor franchises. He can sell them on, I'll do whatever it takes to win here. They have the talent. So whether you want to package that and then do something else, but I think you can actually have a serious pitch now to those free agents as opposed to those free agency meetings where guys are just coming here for due diligence. Chicago is a layover before they go on to, whatever other city it is. You actually have now, you can have a serious conversation. The agents respect this new regime in there. There's like no type of discomfort anymore. So I think that opens up the door to have those serious free agent talks now, as opposed to how things have been just the last 20 plus years.
And my guy Kevin Vassar is asking about available free agents and the moves that the Bulls will be able to make in the next couple of years. I will say the albatross in the room or the organization financially, of course, Otto Porter Jr.
Yeah,
that player option, we know that comes off the books. As you said before, they'll have a chance to go out and get a big-time free agent and possibly a mid-tier free agent. And just keep this in mind, people. Bradley Beal has a player option next year. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, and even go into next year, I think just off the top of my head, I mean, guys like, I don't think it's a star-studded. I think, you look at AD, LeBron, who I don't think is going anywhere. I think Paul George and Kawhi could become available. I think Drew Holiday, Victor Oladipo is in there. Players like Gordon Hayward, DeMar DeRozan, are in that class also. So I mean, there's guys there. I think Giannis is up there too, but there'll be guys that you can actually have conversations with if they make sense, depending on what this team, how they want to play and what they look like, when the season starts.
Yep. Podcast according to sources. Sean Davis, SD2 Mics, my guy C4 Dunk. You can follow him. Chris Kaysen. And man, as I said before, go to Peyton Sports Network, PeytonSportsNet.com. All of our previous shows are archived there. We're streaming on all platforms, all digital platforms. And it's September. The mini bubble is happening for the Bulls right now. We know that the draft is coming up in October. And we've been told basically right now, don't think about NBA basketball once the NBA Finals is done until 2021, early 2021, which means next season is going to go into the fall as well because they're going to play a full 82-game schedule, according to NBA executives. So for my guy Chris Kaysen and my guy Brian Crawford, we'll see you all this weekend where we'll give you a more expansive podcast talking about the Bulls, the NBA playoffs, and what to look for. That's what we're going to get into. Billy Donovan and what to look for from each player in the starting five and how they can be impacted by the hiring of Billy Donovan. We'll get at you this weekend. According to sources, 3 dudes from the game who love the game, talking the game. We'll see you guys this weekend.